Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues for both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found on lifecoach.drdanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our first episode of season 18 a very special guest, an ADHD coach, Roozbeh Khos. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Rooz, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Rooz. I'm an ADHD executive function coach. Brief history about, bio about myself. I grew up in Iran and I moved to the States in 1985. And, I finished elementary in the States and then decided to go back home. Very interesting life. And then I stayed in Iran for 10 years. And after 10 years, I came back to the States. So I've been in the United States since 2000. I lived with ADHD all my life. What I heard when I was a kid, he's very smart, he's very bright. I learned English from grounds up in a matter of 3 months. And in 6 months, I had kind of forgotten Farsi. That's how I don't want to brag about myself, but if you accomplish something, you need to be, talking about it. I, to a point that I could not speak Farsi anymore. And I was always ahead of the class, but challenge was never focused, never could finish the work. The test was not complete, but every time the up was, he's smart, he's bright, he has a great IQ, twice exceptional, all that stuff. When I went back to Iran, I started having behavior challenges. Culture was very different from me. I mean, in 5 years, I became Americanized. The politics was not, I grew up in the Reagan era, and we pledged allegiance every day. I stood up to the flag for 5 years. Now I was being forced to walk over it. And when I was refused, I would have to go to the principal's office. Long story short, I finished my high school in Iran and took 2 years of university, studying chemical engineering and textile. And I wasn't doing good. My parents were not aware of it. I was masking, hiding it. My therapist found out, and he recommended, based on my grades, my love for coming back to America, and I was getting a little bit kind of naughty as far as getting politically active. He is like, you need to leave the country. He convinced my mom and dad, and I came to the States. I have a bachelor's in operations management, and then I got 2 MBAs. I worked in the corporate world for 17 years as procurement, purchasing, buyer. Usually I started from grounds up. I helped develop the team. I always liked to create. And then I would, either move to a manager position or a director. And, life happened. I don't know how detailed you want me to keep going, because it could go.
Go on and on. Of course, I would just want to know, how does the ADHD help you achieve the goals, or how did it put more obstacles at this point?
Oh, it created more obstacles. Not right now, but before, when I was finally diagnosed in 2016, it was a mess. I was always procrastinating. I would set goals. I would have Rooz 2.0, Rooz 2.5, Rooz 2.3, all these wishes, right? Executive function was shock, right? I just had horrible EF. I could not finish a task. I had multiple projects open, 20 calendar opens, missing appointments, sense of time, kind of like, temporal discounting, horrible. You could tell me, how long is this going to take? Oh, it took 52 minutes. Well, a lot of people, after a while, they would know it doesn't take 2 minutes, right? Either underestimating my time or overestimating. And I had a lifespan at every company I worked. And emotions didn't help, because I wear my emotions on my sleeve. It's hard to manage emotions with ADHD. And again, I didn't learn the executive function at the rate that everybody else learns it. So it became very harder. Yeah, so managing ADHD before understanding what I need to do. I mean, in 2016, I had a wake-up call, and that was all because my company that I was working at, I was under a PIP, kind of like a performance evaluation plan. My mom was passing away, and we were having a baby. Like, a lot of stuff was going on, and I fell apart. And since then, I changed 3 jobs. And in 2019, it just hit rock bottom, which I kind of became suicidal, and went through the dark moments for a couple of months. And then once I figured out that I don't want to go back to the corporate world because I saw a pattern, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I need to fix it.
But
I
then,
was,
why wouldn't
yeah.
the doctor prescribe you Adderall to be able to kind of like manage the symptom of ADHD and then kind of like at least alleviate what you were feeling since 2016 if you were actually diagnosed at that time? Why did they let it linger?
If you read the book from Dr. Hallowell, and he talks about meds, and I'm not a doctor, right? You're the expert in this science and this work. Medicine doesn't make you set goals. Medicine is not going to get you, or the Adderall is not going to force me to sit down and get my project done. It's supposed to help focus. But I was talking to a client last night, so we share the same psychiatrist from the past. Meds, I didn't even know, like, when the doctor's like, can you focus? I'm like, what is focus? I've never been focused in my whole life, right? But since 2016 that I started understanding, and my expectations from meds has literally become less and less. I'm less dependent on it. I still take my meds every day. It's a ritual. I have my pill box here. I have to take my meds. But I don't take it and hope that, all right, today I'm going to be 100%. I have to be aware of what I'm doing and make sure that I can catch myself. That a goal, if I set, I have to write it down in my journal. If I am becoming distracted or I'm hyper-focusing, meds is not going to tell me that stuff. That is all Rooz. That is all the techniques that I learned through my coach and I teach my clients.
So how did you manage doing 2 MBAs, doing your degree, doing all of this without, were you on medication at the time, or were you still
on and off? On and off.
Okay.
Just like many ADHDers. No offense. I'm going to say this once. No offense to anybody, but just like a lot of ADHDers, I had a weak follow through. I would take the meds, and you need to be on the meds based on my experience and what I've read and heard is for a certain amount of time. Meds is not something, and I hope people listen to this, is meds is not something for just a normal person to play around with, right? I'm going to take this dosage. You got to talk to your doctor. I would take it for a couple of weeks, and I would get side effects, and then I would decide to not follow up or go tell the doctor. So again, that it was kind of like I was looking for the green pill, like, from the Matrix. I was looking for that way out, that it's going to, boom, I'm going to take it, quick fix, everything is going to be done.
But wasn't it related to the dosage of the medication that they were giving you in terms of how much of the efficacy of it? Because again, if they give you a small dosage, you may not feel the positive feedback of it. If they give you too much, you may have side effects. So then, did they found a way to balance this out?
After, I don't know, what is it? 7 years, yes.
Okay, so now you
took a lot of trial and error, and me learning in the last, in the last, let's say 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, I started taking it seriously, taking my meds for 4 years. But in the last 3 years, it's been more stable. So I know my symptoms. I talk to my doctor. Like, they change the dosage sometimes because I'm like, I'm just getting very comfortable with this. It's hard for me to be present, because that's what my expectations for my Vyvanse is, to be present. So I can be present, and I can know, oh, I need to be with Dr. Dan right now. I don't need to go and take a shower, or I don't need to go and wash the dishes.
But do you think, but what I'm questioning here, Rooz, is the desire for your suicidal thoughts. Was there like a, because you were taking medication? Was it like kind of a, so where did the suicidal thought come from?
Couple of things. You asked me how did I get managed through the MBAs and stuff like that. This all goes hand to hand. I got during the work where I worked is I don't want to use the word bully, but maybe I was under a lot of stress. My manager did not help. They did not believe in meds or even ADHD. I even had accommodations. And a lot of companies don't know what kind of accommodation to provide for ADHDers because you're not someone that is blind and they give you a Braille computer or they give you a Braille notebook that you can write or read, right? So it made it harder. When I became suicidal, it was a couple of things. First of all, when I started manifesting, constantly for 5 or 6 months, I heard, you're not good enough, you're horrible, your MBAs are fraud, you're a fraud, you're making stuff up. It literally started to become like a thought process for me that I started believing in it, right? That was one. The second one was, sorry, I got distracted for a second. Squirrel. Let me close this real quick. I apologize. And then I need to zone back in. People can see this. If you don't, it just takes 1 second for an ADHD to become distracted. And the thought process, I hate to say it, the negative thought process became a norm for me to a point that I was seeking negativity. I tell clients, if you leave an ADHD mind alone, it tends to gravitate toward negativity. I'm not good enough. I'm horrible. And we hear it from other people. It starts becoming a belief. One. Second, medication fluctuated a lot. I was on high dosage, and the high dosage was getting me very agitated and aggravated.
Okay.
It came to a point that when I literally wrote a manifest. I was about to email it to my boss and tell him that I'm ending it because you're saying I'm not. Long story short, I accidentally sent it to my therapist. Distraction, not paying attention who I'm sending it to. My therapist talks to my wife. My wife is a therapist. She's a psychotherapist just like you. She called. She said, I know what you're doing. Talk to this nurse on the phone. The nurse convinced me, joked around a little bit, calmed me down, say, hey, go at least, if you want to do this, just go say goodbye to your daughter. She doesn't know you're leaving. And she was only 1.5. Okay. Convinced me. I got home. They called the police. They took and escorted me. But when I became suicidal, it was, I have meds. I have a psychiatrist. I have a therapist. I have a wife that is a therapy. I have a great support system. Why can I not manage ADHD? Why am I always behind? Why am I always making mistakes? Why? I had lost hope. I couldn't see the future. So do you think literally I had a 1.5-year-old, and we could see at that age she had ADHD. I mean, it passes through the genes. So I was just like, I can't live to see someone else suffer like me.
Mm-hmm. So this imposter syndrome that you had, always questioning your capabilities, your degrees, your knowledge, your expertise, etc. Was that like a prelude to depression? I mean, do you feel that you had depression to a point of wanting to commit suicide? Or do you feel that despite your support system, that you had all the experts surrounding you and helping you, what was the missing factor here? What was the thing that you were not able to manage? Because again, it's like a salad of so many different things, Rooz, and it's just trying to put the piece of the puzzle together.
When my therapist finally brought my wife in and said, look, I am going to diagnose him definitely with ADHD. It's not just depression. He has ADHD, and that's why he's depressed, right? It's an underlining of it. He has anxiety, all of this stuff, but it's the ADHD that we need to manage first. A lot of people go the other route, right? What the challenge is that at one point she said, I have done all the therapy that I could do after 2 years. You need a coach. You need somebody that teaches you executive function. You need somebody to help you get to the next part. I called a couple of coaches. I didn't want to spend the money. I was like, I have insurance. Therapy should, and I think it was a blessing. I honestly think even that whole little spike that I had in my life, and I think it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call because it shook me to a point. It's like, I need help. I need to stop masking it. I need to stop hiding it and running from job to job, because the carpet would get smelly. I mean, I keep hiding it underneath the carpet, like, hey, put it away, nobody would know.
Okay. And do you feel that now every time that you were changing jobs and you were not finding what you were looking for in that new job, did that bring or accelerated your depression?
Yes. And a lot of it had to do with my self-esteem. Because I would look at it as like, oh, I stayed there for 2 years and look at all the stuff that they said. I'm always behind. I'm not on time. I'm missing emails. I mean, simple, like little stuff, mistyping and stuff like that. And, they would always criticize me. And that criticism would make me look at my past, start believing in the negative, and it caused a massive depression. Like, through a point that in 2016, I started going through a transformation for weight loss. I went from 255 to 179.
Oh,
when
wow.
depression hit in 2016, 17, after my mom passed, and that whole thing at my first company happened, I literally fell apart, and I just had to, like, for 2 years. And since then, I've been still battling it, because now I know the tricks that I did and I'm not following through, but I'm still battling that, depression that exists. And depression is a lot better, way better.
So how did you manage the pandemic that we all went through? How did that accentuated your symptoms of ADHD and everything that followed? Or were you able to kind of, because you were home and you're working from home, did that just made your work experience even harder?
I wasn't working, actually. I was unemployed at that time, and I was training to become a coach.
Oh, okay.
And but it was not pretty, because there were dark moments again that I would have, again, racing thoughts. And I was just learning about coaching, taking my courses and getting coached. The first couple of months I was freaking out. I was like, oh, I'm gonna die right away. So I was extra cautious. Then I would have moments, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and finish it. I'm tired of this life. But when my coach started working with me and calming me down and helping me see, like, hey, this is the way, this is the hope, this is, working on going from that fixed mindset to the shift mindset, right? Looking at the positives and believing in myself. And I didn't even have my MBA on the wall. I was like, oh, it's a fraud. I was like, okay, if it's a fraud, you paid for it, you got that degree, just put it on the wall. I'm like, I don't. And then she convinced me, little by little, these little, certifications started coming in, and, the beliefs became to a point, and anything that I did in life became a celebration. I started hanging up my medals that I used to do, Spartan races and, sport tournaments and stuff like that. And I started looking at the positives.
So when you go and coach someone who's dealing with ADHD and all the symptoms that you have experienced yourself, obviously there's different spectrum, different level of gravity of the ADHD. So how do you approach that for any of your listeners that are actually dealing with ADHD? How do you deal with helping them out with either taking medication, or is it like holistic approach? Is it meditation? Is it exercise? What do you recommend the most?
It's life coaching, so I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe meds, right? But if I have clients that come to me like, hey, I've taken the test online. I don't want to get diagnosed. I have ADHD. I know I have it, and I don't care whether I get diagnosed or not. I just need help.
Okay.
They're looking for the lens of ADHD as a life coach. So I provide them, I'm a regular life coach, but my expertise and the extra training that I took to become a PCC level coach and as a professional coach, is that make sure that I take the ADHD lens in there, right? And living through it, I bring sympathy and understanding. I sympathize. I'm like, I understand what you're going through. It's your journey, not mine, right? But I help them, and I ask them the questions like, how do you think the ADHD is showing up? With asking the right questions, I help the client find a safe place that they can open up.
Yeah.
They can talk. Once they start the talking, once they start hearing themselves, a lot of ADHDers are verbal processors. They come up with the way that they're going to do it, and then they will follow it. Because I tell them I'm like a tailor, right? I'm here to tailor the best suit to you. but you got to have patience because there's going to be a lot of times we're going to put it together and we're going to take it apart. We're going to put it together and take it apart.
But the fact that you have experienced ADHD puts you really in a better, like showing more empathy to those who are dealing with ADHD, because even if you are a clinical therapist or dialectical or cognitive or neurolinguistic, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, because as long as you have dealt with it yourself, like for example, I was born with hypothyroidism, okay? And I know everything on how thyroid works. So when I see someone, because I used to also be a fitness trainer, I help people lose weight as a fitness coach. And that allows me, if I see someone with certain symptoms, I know if they have hypo or hyperthyroidism, because my brain clicks in a clinical aspect of it. So I know this because I live it. Okay. If they tell me certain symptoms that they're going through, I know what the issue is, and I know how to help them reactivate their metabolism. So same thing for you. You have lived it, so that puts you in the right place to help others know how to manage those symptoms and how to work around it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what, for our listeners out there that are really dealing with the brunt of the ADHD, you recommend, of course, for them to continue on their medication, to continue making sure that they are really consistent with it and not just step out away or not, but also to be able to find other alternatives, because just medication in itself, like you said, is not really going to cure the ADHD. It's just going to help them focus. But if they don't have the focus and they don't know where to go from there, what other alternative is there to help them through this ADHD process?
So you said focus. It's interesting because a lot of my clients are like, I'm taking the meds and I'm focusing, but I'm focusing on the wrong thing. We hyper focus on the stuff that is interesting. You know, a lot of people call it ADHD. I have learned it's not a lack of attention. I think, in my opinion, it's a lack of interest. When something is not interesting, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go wash the dishes. It's not interesting. But being on my phone and going on Instagram, or, you know, I don't have, what is it? The one that they do, Snapchat and stuff like that. But a lot of my clients have that. And I know for a fact, if I install it, I'm going to be, you know,
Stuck.
So I stop. But anyways, the meds, when I take it, my expectations, or when I tell clients, is you need to be on a routine. I teach them about routine. I teach them about daily task goal settings, right? ADHDers are great entrepreneurs. A lot of them, if you go read the Driven to Distraction, or if you just Google ADHD famous people, you'll find a lot.
Yes.
I know one person believes that even Da Vinci was ADHD. I know it was a long time ago, but the guy, look at it. He had a journal and he journaled all these thoughts. It's, again, not a clinician, I can't say that, but at 36, I decided to journal for the first time because I felt that my brain is rushing. As Hollowell says, it's the Ferrari brain. My brain is goes 0 to 60. When that 0 to 60 is happening, I get overwhelmed. So the first thing I started to do was, hey, I need to dump these thoughts. I need to dump these moments. I cannot forget this. Every time I say that, I'm like, guess what? You're ADHD. You have a short-term memory. Accept it. I don't have a good short-term memory. So I write it down. I have a great long-term memory. You can tell me in 1986, what was I doing on one day? Sometimes, right? I'll remember. But if you tell me specific stuff, sometimes I forget. So it's through these techniques and tools that we were taught as a coach to help the clients to understand on how to manage the ADHD. I believe what even Dr. Hallowell says in his ADHD 2.0, you have to have a kind of like a triangle approach to ADHD. I took his seminar, and first couple of days, he talked about education, therapy, and when he talked about education, it was education / life coaching. So it was education, life coaching, and then on the other side was therapy, and then meds. Now, you don't need to have all of them. Some people don't, right? Some people meds, like for me, I've been on every single one. A lot of them didn't work. And I know a lot of ADHDers don't have even meds, but they're managing because they have someone that helps them learn how to become accountable,
Right.
right? My goal as a coach, I tell them like it's to teach you accountability, to teach yourself when I say I'm going to get up and wash the dishes, I create a task list. So I don't hyper focus on all the other stuff that I need to get done because I'm going to get overwhelmed.
I see. So do you think that maybe cutting the I would say the task in small little chunks,
Oh,
like,
definitely.
will not be able to be like, as you said, overwhelming to them, and they will not procrastinate from doing it? Because you know what, unfortunately in life, you cannot always do the thing that you're passionate about. You're gonna have to do the crappy thing, the mundane things. So that's a part of life. So, but if they're not interested or not passionate to do it, does it mean that they're not responsible to doing those tasks? They have to do them no matter what. So how do you manage around to be able to, even though they know they're a boring task, they could still find some ounce of passion in it?
I was talking to a new client yesterday and they're having a hard time sending out resumes. It's a mundane task. It's boring. I mean, when I did it, I hated it absolutely, right? So I sit down with them. I'm like, first of all, it's not cheating. There's software that you can use online that can help you tailor your resume, right? But the first thing is, what is your ultimate goal? Write it out. A lot of times I use visual effects. I told once a client, go get a suit. I don't have money. I'm like, I'll lend you this money. Go get a suit and take a picture and post it online and say, this is the future CEO. That's where you want. You're a director and you want to go for the CEO. You want to go for the CFO. Look and see how empowered you will feel, right? So client might come and say, I want to get my driver license or I need to take this test and I need that certification. I said, we're not going to do anything illegal. We're going to make a fake certificate for you. You're going to write your name on it. And I want you to put that in front of you and look at it every day.
Visualize.
Because once you see that, it's a visual reminder.
Correct.
That's your ultimate goal. And then we're going to write it down. We have to get this thing done in 6 months. Now we start planning backwards and chunking it down. What are the steps that is going to see? ADHDers have great thoughts. Again, entrepreneurs. But when it comes to executing it,
Yes.
I read this book, and on the first page, it says it's a ADHD adult toolkit. Yes. Oh, got it. And in this book, quickly, it says ADHD is not a lack of intelligence or lack of information. Actually, we're very intelligent and we have a lot of knowledge, but it's a performance challenge. Doing what you need to do at the right time, doing that mundane task that it's hard, sending out the resume, right? Breaking it down, right? What is my goal today? Today, I'm just going to sit down and work on the header. And then tomorrow, I'm going to work on this part. But they get overwhelmed. Oh, but I need this right now. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't done it for the last 6 weeks.
Yes.
I'm like, yes, let's work on it little by little. Once they start becoming trust of the coach and the process, they will start opening up and they will follow. Once they follow, they will see success.
So one last question to you, Rooz. So for everyone who actually always wait till the last minute because they feel that they're more performant at the last minute, do you think they do suffer from some sort of ADHD, or they feel that when they're in a very tight deadline, they perform better? What would you consider that to be?
I don't consider it ADHD because I'm going to get myself in trouble, but that is an ADHD trait, right? We procrastinate, we wait till the last minute. It's like soccer. They wait till the last 90 minutes and they start setting goals, right? And hitting it. It's that rush, right? Sometimes they get an adrenaline kick out of it, right? Sometimes it's that I'll do it later. I'm looking for the perfect night. I'll write the paper tomorrow. Deadlines sometimes work for ADHDers, but when they put the deadline for themselves, I need to get this thing done tonight so I can be successful next week. They might not even forget about it. That temporal discounting, right? I have this joke. ADHDers only see the tip of their nose. If you tell them they got a test next week, you might as well say you don't have a test at all because they'll forget.
That's true. Well, Rooz, on that note, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate your time and to take out of your busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 18 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories, just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Managing the challenges of ADHD is like piloting a unique and exciting journey. Embrace your remarkable mind and harness its creativity, energy, and hyperfocus. Don't see ADHD as a limitation, but more as a superpower in disguise. Stay organized, break tasks into steps, and use hyperfocus to your advantage. Seek support when needed. Celebrate small victories, be patient, and practice self-compassion. In the face of ADHD, you have the power to be a trailblazer and a creative genius. Your unique mind is a gift waiting to change the world. My name is Dr. Dan Amzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.